Story 1. The hangover is not worth it. Even if I drink a little and do not have a hangover, I still feel somewhat depleted and empty the next day. It is just not worth it. Story 2. I received a driving under the influence charge and finally admitted to myself that, while I am not a daily drinker, I clearly have a problem with binge drinking and knowing my limits. I didn't even realize I was intoxicated that night. It was a significant eye-opener, and I am thankful every day that I didn't harm anyone. I started attending Alcoholics Anonymous that week and quit smoking marijuana as well. Story 3. I think it was the realization that finally dawned on me that I always made things much worse when I drink. I'm not a good drinker, and I always had too much. Story 4. I have never consumed alcohol and do not plan to. I find the smell unpleasant and do not want more health problems than I already have. Story 5. 2 reasons. First, I genuinely don't like the taste. I understand that people consume alcohol for its effects rather than its flavor, but I cannot enjoy something that does not taste good. Second, I grew up in a family of alcoholics. I have seen alcohol bring out the worst in people, ruin lives, and I have disliked it ever since. I have no interest in alcohol and do not need it to have fun, unlike many others today. I dislike the culture surrounding it. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth, no pun intended. Story 6. I was a binge-drinking alcoholic in 2019. After returning from deployment, I became a much angrier person and used alcohol to cope. I only made cocktails, convincing myself that it was better than beer or straight liquor. I was consuming about 14 ounces of hard liquor each night. Eventually, it became so severe that my wife gave me an ultimatum: get it under control or she would leave. I attended the Navy's version of Alcoholics Anonymous and managed to regain control. I haven't had a drink since. Story 7. I have drank before. It makes me feel like garbage for no exaggeration 2 to 3 days every single time after only one drink. I'm just not a fan. I vastly prefer edibles. Story 8. I was very close to ruining my life and ending it for no good reason. I decided I never wanted to experience that again. I received medical help, and my family supported me. I have been alcohol-free for 10 years and 4 months. Story 9. I have never had a single drop. The reason is simple: why would I? It adds nothing to my life, except dulls my mind. Story 10. I started to get agitated when I would drink. Even after half a drink, I would feel my blood beginning to simmer and eventually reaching a rolling boil. So, I don't drink anymore, only on very rare occasions. If I start to feel myself warming up, I stop and I'm done. Story 11. 30 minutes of fun followed by hours of feeling awful and regretting that I drank anything. I smoke a lot of cannabis, though. Story 12. Dealing with many intoxicated individuals makes you reflect on how you appear when you're under the influence. That's what turned me away, and I don't miss it. Story 13. I was addicted. Every single day I wasn't at work, I would be drinking. I never experienced a hangover because I never stopped drinking long enough to get one. My quality of life was declining, and I was aware that my health was deteriorating and my dependency was worsening. I realized my friends only wanted me around because I was more fun when I was under the influence. Although I still love the way it makes me feel, I had a life to live, and I wasn't going to achieve it in the direction I was heading. I now very rarely drink and have lost interest in it. I distanced myself from those friends and took pride in that decision. I changed my life, found new hobbies, and committed to them. Story 14. I was hospitalized several times for suicidal thoughts, plans, or attempts. Each time, they would try to get me into Alcoholics Anonymous. Then I had a stroke at age 27 and continued to drink heavily, still wanting to die. One day, I decided to try Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't think I needed it. I heard their stories and recognized myself in them. I stopped drinking and have not been hospitalized again. I no longer harm myself and handle stress much better. I am now 7 years sober. Story 15. Getting drunk gives me crippling anxiety the next day. It's not about wishing I hadn't said or done something. It's this unavoidable dread and fear that makes me feel uneasy and lasts the whole day. I relied on alcohol as a social crutch, so stopping was a little scary at first, and the social pressure still gets to me sometimes. However, I've realized I'm pretty fun sober too. It's just a process to get used to, like anything else. Now, I'm mostly sober and only have one drink on the rare occasion that I do drink. Story 16. I never saw my dad having any interest in this sort of stuff, and I personally never felt any desire for it. To be honest, I don't even like to smoke or drink, and I never will. Story 17. My high school teacher's advice ended up saving me a lot of money that I would have otherwise spent on drinks. Story 18. Perimenopause can bring about significant changes. Suddenly, alcohol caused severe insomnia and worsened my symptoms. I have been alcohol-free for 1 year and 4 months, and I feel great. Additionally, it has been shown to increase health risks, including various forms of cancer. Health Canada has recently updated the recommended guidelines to a maximum of 1 to 2 alcoholic beverages per week. Story 19. I started working out and weight training. When I learned that alcohol breaks down muscle cells, I stopped drinking because I realized I was working hard just to ruin my gains with a couple of drinks. I can't even drink occasionally or finish my drink because I can't justify spending all those hours of hard work and energy only to waste it. Story 20. I never really drank until my late 30s when COVID had everyone staying indoors and working via video conferencing. I figured why not, and I drank a bottle or two of wine every day and had a great time. Fast forward, and I had gained almost 50 pounds and was diagnosed with diabetes. I got that under control by returning to my diet and exercise. I had a housewarming party in 2022. I drank almost an entire bottle of bourbon and ended up at 3 a.m. regretting my choices. I woke up the next day fully expecting the worst and feeling completely unproductive. On what felt like my deathbed, I recalled thinking, why do I put poison in my body and expect a positive result? I also realized that at no point in my 40 years of life have I ever said, I'm really glad I drank last night. That was it for me. I just don't touch alcohol anymore. I don't see the need. It's not required for me to enjoy myself or others. On a deeper level, it's the one substance in America that is socially acceptable to be addicted to, but it's also tacitly encouraged. That really made me think. Story 21. 4 days of anxiety, joint pain, and intrusive negative thoughts followed a night of drinking. The negatives started to outweigh the positives. Everything improved when I stopped consuming it. Everything. Story 22. I have been on antidepressants since I was 18 or 19. Obviously, it is not wise to drink while on them. It even states on the packaging not to. I drink very rarely. Story 23. I have obsessive-compulsive disorder, and my brain will not let me consume alcohol or any beverage that isn't water. Story 24. My general practitioner said to me one time after reviewing my lab results, "It's going to kill you." I never drank again. It was the best decision I've made. Story 25. Never started because of being Muslim. I was taught that my mind is a gift and I shouldn't seek to be rid of it. Socially, I never needed it. I'm comfortable in any setting without it and don't give in to peer pressure. I can match the energy of others who are partying without the need to drink. It feels like a natural high that I can choose to snap out of. I saw drunk friends and thought, I would never want to appear that way to someone I knew. I went to college in the United States and witnessed the negative effects of drinking around me. It smells horrible. I dislike vices. I feel vindicated by observing the general pattern of people who drink too much, learn to slow down, then wish they never started, leading to a love-hate relationship with it. The same applies to smoking. So, why even consider starting when many my age are wishing they never did and are trying to stop? Additionally, you save money, and it's empowering when no vice has control over you. Story 26. I drink beer sometimes, but I just don't like how it makes me feel. I may share a beer with my wife at a restaurant, but very little is enough to satisfy my interest in the taste. Story 27. I recently decided to give up drinking, at least for a little while, because I noticed I felt sad when the effects began to wear off. I am not referring to hangovers. I genuinely felt sad with no reason to feel that way, so I realized there is obviously something going on that I need to take care of. Story 28. I vomited on my feet and made the decision then to stop drinking. It has been 9 years since I have had a drink. It may be a strange reason to quit cold turkey, but I enjoy being completely sober. Story 29. I became disillusioned with my lifestyle. I have never been arrested for driving under the influence, never harmed my wife or children, and have not lost a job due to substance abuse. One day, I discovered Alcoholics Anonymous and decided to attend a meeting. I have been sober for over 28 years now. Story 30. I cannot just have one drink. I do not like feeling anxious the next day about what I said while I was intoxicated. Story 31. I am a Muslim, and it is forbidden to consume alcohol or anything that could endanger health and sanity. Story 32. I still drink it occasionally, but I have significantly cut back. I am trying to lose weight and tone up. Alcohol adds many unnecessary calories. Story 33. I left my husband, which significantly reduced my consumption since it was something we used to enjoy together. I tried psychedelics and they kind of flipped a switch for me. I began to feel unwell even after just one drink, so I avoid alcohol altogether now. Story 34. I stopped because I no longer enjoyed it and I knew it wasn't healthy for me. I wanted to take a step in a healthier direction. Story 35. I love alcohol, which is why I had to stop. I drank every day for 10 years to cope with stress and relax. Then I hit rock bottom and had to go to rehabilitation. It was a difficult situation. Story 36. Having a child 10 years ago made me not want to drink alcohol. My mother was an alcoholic, and she struggled with it until the age of 77, drinking bottles of vodka and whiskey. I didn't want to tempt fate, so I quit when I found out I was pregnant and have never looked back. Alcohol is toxic, even in moderation. Story 37. My liver. I wouldn't have stopped without the threat of death, but now that I have quit, I am delighted with the positive difference it has made in my life. Living a sober life is unexpectedly good. Story 38. I have never liked the taste. It is very expensive, and I do not want to purposely make myself sick. Sometimes I think that alcohol is just an elaborate trick that people play, especially wine. The only drinks I enjoy are those that taste like fruit drinks or chocolate milk. If it does not come with a tiny umbrella or a small toy, I do not want it. Story 39. I took a year and a half off, and the other day I tried drinking to see if I still wanted it. I shouldn't have taken those drinks, but at the very least, it was validation for why I stopped. The hangovers for me are really bad, lasting 2 to 3 days, sometimes longer. The post-party depression is very real for me as well. Also, it's just a waste of money, in my opinion. Spending around $500 to feel terrible for days and create blurry memories just isn't for me anymore. During that year and a half off, I got in the best shape of my life, even with a broken wrist that is so severe the bones have died, and I just have to live with it. That says more than anything I've mentioned above. Bad habits can really hold you back. Story 40. I reached a point where I realized I had to make a decision. I could either continue drinking and let it destroy me or stop. So I stopped. Story 41. The man I wanted to marry had seizures and went into a coma from alcohol poisoning. One of my classmates was run over on his bicycle and killed by a drunk driver. 3 of my friends nearly went into liver failure from drinking too much. One of my brothers ended up in the hospital from alcohol poisoning. A client I befriended at work died in her early 50s from Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, and my best friend died just 2 years ago from stage 4 trachea and liver cancer. I don't understand why people drink, social pressure or not. Seeing how much it destroyed lives around me, including my own, has been frightening. I wish more people would wake up to how devastating this is and why I would be so happy for it to disappear completely. I will never forget witnessing their suffering and their family's pain, and how much grief it has caused me. That is why I will never drink. Story 42. I don't know. To be honest, nobody ever told me the positive aspects of alcohol. With cannabis, everyone talks about how it gets you high, but no one ever mentions the repercussions of alcohol. The only things I have heard are negative, like how it destroys lives. Maybe that's why. Story 43. I have never acquired a taste for it, which is probably for the best since alcoholism has affected half my family. Story 44. I used to drink when I was younger, but I haven't had alcohol in over 10 years. There are a few reasons for this. I was in a relationship with someone whose father was a recovering alcoholic, and she was nervous around drinkers, so out of respect, I mostly stopped drinking. Additionally, I am on medication that shouldn't be combined with alcohol. Lastly, alcohol just isn't my choice. I don't really like the feeling during or after. Story 45. Hangovers have always been a problem for me, and since turning 30, the effects have worsened significantly. I experience headaches, dehydration, gastroesophageal reflux disease, bloating, and terrible congestion. No matter how much medicine I took, nothing helped. I just had to ride out the symptoms. It typically takes about 48 hours before I feel normal again, and it's not worth losing 2 days of my life feeling terrible when I can still have fun and wake up to do what I need to do. That being said, I tried Biotics, and for me, it significantly reduced the symptoms. However, it also made it harder to feel intoxicated, and since it's expensive, I only use it for special occasions when I know I'll be drinking a considerable amount. At this point, that's really the only time I drink. Story 46. I don't like how it makes me feel during and after. It is a waste of money as well. I would rather smoke marijuana. The high lasts longer and it has never made me feel bad during or after. Story 47. Growing up witnessing family members struggle with alcohol was traumatic. I find it difficult to even drink. I can't handle the taste of beer. 1 beer is enough for me, and 2 is pushing it. Story 48. Being intoxicated sounds horrible. The thought of losing all inhibitions is terrifying, not to mention I prefer not to deal with hangovers. Alcohol is also expensive. I see it as nothing more than a huge waste of money. You are better off just burning it. Story 49. Alcohol is expensive in my province, and I don't like how it tastes. Paying a lot of money for something I dislike seems like a no-brainer, so I choose not to drink. Story 50. I just realized that drinking made me sad or depressed, even when I was with other people. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. Story 51. I really dislike the taste. I know no one likes it, but I have an involuntary reaction to it and immediately spit it out. It's also just not worth it. I have no interest in finding out what it's like to have a hangover or be intoxicated. Story 52. I stopped because I am getting older. I do not want to look older, as I read that drinking alcohol speeds up the aging process. Story 53. I realized my drinking habits had become problematic, and that I would need a break. I stopped and never started drinking again. Now I find the smell very unpleasant, and I enjoy observing how much people change after drinking, sometimes with shock. Story 54. The worst decisions I have ever made came from being intoxicated. I also dislike how it makes me feel for a few days after drinking. Story 55. I never started drinking because I grew up with 2 alcoholic family members, which showed me what alcohol can do. I used to avoid beer cans and walk through the supermarket's alcohol section, but now I can thankfully handle it. Knowing that I have a tendency towards addiction since I was younger, I realized it would be a slippery slope. I decided it was better to stay completely away from alcohol and not take any risks. I do, however, drink kombucha and enjoy mead that's less than 1% alcohol once a year, but it took years to reach this point. I don't believe I'll ever drink anything designed as an alcoholic beverage, even though I have seen many people enjoy alcohol responsibly. I just refuse to take the risk. I also feel that my choice has not taken anything away from my life. Rather, it has been a positive decision overall. Story 56. I never really liked alcohol. As soon as I got my driver's license, I enjoyed driving too much to drink. Later, I had negative experiences with an alcoholic in my family. At that point, I became disgusted by alcohol. Story 57. I got a bad headache from even 1 glass of sparkling wine. I didn't have fun while drinking, and it wasn't worth it. Story 58. Chronic illness. Drinking any amount of alcohol makes me extremely ill for days. It is not worth it. I do not even get to enjoy the buzz or social aspect because of how sick it makes me. Story 59. I had too many hangovers in my 20s. Now, in my 30s, I choose when I'll have one. I didn't stop drinking, but I can go a month without alcohol with no problem. Besides, I do a lot of sports, and when I was 23 years old, it was not a problem. However, now at 35, the lack of energy is real when I drink too much. But I really love beer and wish I could drink more without any issues. Story 60. I experienced alcohol poisoning twice, once at the age of 31 and again at 36. While others may struggle in their teenage years, I was late to the party. Story 61. I always said I would stop. 2 weeks ago, I was hungover and threw up blood. I rushed to the hospital, thinking that I might die. They told me my liver enzymes were dangerously high and that I could damage my esophagus if I did not stop. That woke me up. I am now 2 weeks sober. It is not worth the risk. Story 62. I am indigenous, and most of my family members have either passed away from liver cirrhosis or cancer-related diseases. My dad set a good example and never drank. I find the taste absolutely unappealing and have never been intoxicated. The hangovers I have seen do not look nice, and the smell of alcohol is also not appealing. Story 63. I dislike the taste and always have. Everyone said it would become an acquired taste, but that is not the case. I once tried a Scotch tasting, and it was all so unpleasant that I thought it was a prank. There's no way people pay money to drink that. Story 64. I tried it when I was young and sneaked some adult eggnog. Tasted terrible. I accidentally had some adult punch when I was in middle school, thanks to my aunt. My brother brought home some non-alcoholic beer and shared it with me. I actually gagged. When I turned 21, I went clubbing legally for the first time and tried at least 15 different drinks and cocktails. All of them tasted terrible. I saw a post about 40 minutes ago and decided to try some of my roommate's wine. Tastes terrible. I cannot stand the taste of alcohol. Story 65. I would rather smoke marijuana. I dislike the stomachache and hangover from alcohol. Marijuana enhances conversation, time spent with friends, intimacy, sleep, and overall experiences, all in moderation like everything else. Story 66. Brother, I once felt really sad and depressed due to situations in my life. One day, I went to a bar with some friends and bought a bottle of Bacardi. I ended up getting blackout drunk to the point where I couldn't recognize anyone, fought a friend, fought my dad, and got run over. I woke up in the hospital 2 weeks after my 3-year relationship had ended, leaving me in pieces. I lost the trust of my second family. No amount of fun is worth ruining your life over, and I constantly blame myself for what I lost that day. So I stopped drinking. Story 67. I am an alcoholic and have been sober for 5 years, which is why I stopped. I have not regretted it for a moment, and I give all the credit to God. Story 68. The last hangover I had lasted 3 days, and I didn't even enjoy the night. I decided to take a break for a few months and never bothered again, and that was 12 years ago. I found out that almost all my friends were just drinking buddies, which was difficult, but I have moved on now. Story 69. I already don't have a filter, and alcohol makes it much worse, even with just one drink. My partner is also sober, which makes it easier. Story 70. I feel physically better without it. At times, it seems like a drink would be great when I'm out with friends, but ultimately it's not worth the risk of being pulled over. I prefer to drive rather than use a rideshare service, so I stick with water. Story 71. Meniere's disease affected my life significantly. After months of feeling like I do when I lie back after having too many drinks, I decided to stop consuming alcohol daily. I realized I didn't actually miss alcohol. I enjoyed waking up refreshed and having the ability to get home safely in my own car and at my own pace. The freedom of not drinking outweighs everything else. Story 72. I went through a long period of depression and stress and ended up in the hospital for an extended time. My body was failing. Since then, I've tried to enjoy a drink, but I almost immediately vomit. My body is saying, no way, not ever again. This doesn't mean that I'll never have another drink, but my body clearly rejects it, and it will likely be a struggle to ever try to enjoy hard liquor. Story 73. I was already trying to quit drinking, but this New Year's Eve, I had one glass of wine and got very sick. I had never felt so unwell before. It was like throwing up and felt like hell, as if I had been poisoned. This experience was a blessing in disguise because now I never want to drink again. I have a strong physical reaction to even the smell of alcohol since then. Story 74. I had already stopped drinking for the most part, but then a cardiologist informed me after a CT scan of my heart that there was a particular muscle that was weaker than it should be. This condition is most commonly associated with heavy drinkers. I had already turned my life around at that point, and the same cardiologist laughed at my stress test and said I was fine. It became significantly easier to maintain my progress knowing that I had done minor, but real damage to my heart. Story 75. It's not interesting to be buzzed or drunk. I don't care for it. As I got older, I moved further away from the partying of my youth. Eventually, I realized I hadn't drunk in a few years and didn't even care. I try a glass of red wine occasionally just to taste it, but a mouthful is hardly enough to get anyone buzzed or drunk. Story 76. While I don't completely abstain from alcohol, I probably drink less than 5 times a year, usually at family gatherings on my husband's side. Even then, it's not much, maybe a glass of wine or two. I don't drink for the sake of drinking. If I'm having a drink, I want to enjoy the taste, and most of the alcohol I don't like or it's too expensive. I'm content with a soft drink. Story 77. It seemed clear to me that it is bad for you. Also, a beer gut isn't appealing, and the taste is unpleasant. I don't understand why anyone drinks, to be honest. Story 78. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I liked the mixed drinks, but everything else was unappealing. Story 79. As I got older, it made me feel bad, even if it wasn't a full hangover. I can get severe headaches and noticeable joint pain from inflammation. I have also said some strange things while only slightly intoxicated. Story 80. I honestly loved drinking every night on a regular basis. I was genuinely excited to come home and enjoy a drink, just as someone would be excited to go on a nice vacation. What made me stop was realizing that I would have about 20 years left at most if I continued drinking the way I did. So I decided to choose quantity over quality. Story 81. I drink beer from time to time, but getting drunk is a younger person's game, typically influenced by some form of pressure. I love the life I've created and don't care what others say. I appreciate life more when sober. Nothing is better than the company of those around me. Story 82. I remember when I was 12, my dad told me about the positives and negatives. He mentioned that the positives are usually temporary, while the negatives are not. That was it. He doesn't drink himself. Story 83. I had a serious accident a few years ago due to my reckless behavior. I crashed while driving about 130 miles per hour, according to the police report. Fortunately, I stayed in my seat but fractured my wrist and hit my face on the steering wheel. It was the worst night of my life, and I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone. Additionally, I have a lot of family members who have died from similar issues, with liver failure being the most common cause. Story 84. My dad was a weekend drinker until he found Jesus. I never wanted to be like him. I never really liked the taste much. I started feeling bad right away. I never experienced the feeling good that I heard others talk about. After considering the first 3 points, I realized it was foolish to spend money on it. Story 85. It is a significant financial burden. Some might think alcohol is not that expensive, but I used to spend around 7,500 Rand every weekend, equivalent to $400. That is not even counting the toll it took on my health. Story 86. I haven't had a drink yet, but I've already decided that I won't be a drinker. I had an uncle who struggled with alcoholism, and I saw how he behaved when he was drunk. I also have a disability and take a lot of medication, so I'm scared of the possible consequences of harming myself. I'm a protective person and want to ensure everyone else is safe. Story 87. I quit drinking when I was working on Pipeline 6 to 1 to make my mornings easier, and it just became my new normal. Story 88. I have a hard time controlling myself when I am drunk. I have no filter, and I end up saying and doing foolish things because I lack self-control. It is best for everyone that I do not drink alcohol at all. Story 89. 17 months sober. I started problem drinking after my dad passed away, and it intensified how awful I felt. I had a fight with my wife one day when I was drunk and said something I regretted. I swore I would never touch another drop. I stuck to that promise and have been steadfast moving forward. Story 90. Just about every negative experience in my life was related to alcohol. My parents drank excessively, and all the children suffered in various ways. I endured physical abuse, but my sisters and I also went hungry at times, and none of us felt valued or loved. We all experienced behavioral issues, and there were criminal charges more than once. Despite this, I drank every chance I had for about 20 years. I drank my way down to the street, and I couldn't see any way to go lower. By the grace of God and the support of the program and fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, I have not had a drink since. Story 91. The extra calories never appealed to me, and I hated the unpleasant feeling of being hungover, which always occurred. As I get older, it lasts longer. Takes me about a week to recover from just 2 drinks. I often wonder if I spent that money on alcohol and feel like my money could have been spent on something more meaningful. Story 92. I lived with a single mother who never drank. When I first tried alcohol, I thought it was unpleasant, so I never developed a taste for it, even now in my mid-30s. I drink socially, but I have bottles of alcohol that are years old in my fridge because I just don't feel the need to drink it otherwise. Story 93. I have never had a drink in my life. I never saw any point in drinking alcohol. I do not have any desire to compromise my faculties, and I often hear of people doing foolish things because they were intoxicated. I have also never used any drugs. Additionally, what if I tried it and liked it? I do not need that distraction in my life. Story 94. I realized that nothing good comes from drinking, whether it leads to car accidents or poor decisions, and this understanding has helped me avoid it. Story 95. Drugs were easier to carry around, and they didn't make you feel bad the next day. Alcohol, on the other hand, was not the same. Story 96. Stopped due to blood pressure, health, and its recent classification as a carcinogen. Now I sleep better, have lost weight, reduced medication, experience no hangovers, and feel less stress with my wife. So win for everyone. Story 97. I never started. I never saw what the appeal was. Costs a lot of money, can make people aggressive, harms your health, and I have read too many stories about getting drunk and accidentally cheating on a significant other. My family has a history of addiction and alcoholism, so I knew that if I drank at all, it would not be good. I am 24 now and still have never tried it, and I dislike the idea. Story 98. My father was a functional alcoholic, and he still is, but I have low contact with him now. He was the loud and obnoxious type of drunk. I never made a conscious decision to stop drinking. I just gradually lost the desire years ago. Additionally, addiction is prevalent on both sides of my family, so I choose not to take the risk. Story 99. My father told me at age 16, "Let the honor of your first drink be with me," which made me say no to my friends as I wanted to have my first drink with him. Then I saw my friends make complete fools of themselves while drunk, and that turned me off forever. As an adult, I have never tasted any type of alcohol, thanks to my father and my irresponsible friends. Story 100. I quit all alcohol when I started taking opioids in 2003. I could not manage both and maintain control of my behavior. I needed the opioids, as advised, to help with pain relief from a career-ending injury, so I stopped drinking. I was never a heavy drinker, so I didn't miss it. 3 years ago, I started using medical cannabis. Now, I no longer take opioids. I manage my disability with cannabis, acetaminophen, and physical therapy. I get along pretty well. I have 15-year-old twins that keep me busy. Story 101. I dislike it. It tastes terrible, burns, makes my heart race, and causes nausea and diarrhea. There is no point, and everyone I know becomes flushed, sweaty, and loud. Yet, I'm the outlier for not drinking at social events or gatherings. I receive sour looks as if I'm a party pooper. Not at all. Enjoy yourself, just don't come near me while you're sweating. Story 102. I never really liked it. I can't understand why people in movies and TV series sit and drink straight whiskey. I've read comments that people enjoy it, but I don't get it. Story 103. I started using marijuana long before I began drinking and thought that smoking it felt much better overall, both in the moment and the next day. Story 104. It was changing me as a person and distancing me from my relationships, friendships, and family. When I got drunk, it felt like a whole other person was in control. My health was declining, so I've stopped. I'm only 27, and I'm glad I turned things around before any bridges were burned. Story 105. Chronic pancreatitis and Percher's retinopathy are significant challenges in my life. The pain is unbearable during acute attacks, and losing my vision for weeks has deeply affected me. Over 30 years, I have endured tremendous hardships, including a pancreas that has suffered 40% atrophy, 4 surgeries on my esophagus, 3 on my stomach, numerous hospitalizations, a feeding tube, and the lasting effects of medication. My teeth have worn down from years of vomiting. The most difficult part is reflecting on the damage caused, not just to my body but also to the people around me and the time lost. While I can never regain that time, I am committed to making the most of the time I have left. Story 106. I come from a long line of high-functioning individuals and did not want that life. My sobriety means everything to me. Story 107. I have seen too many people drunk and acting foolish, argumentative, sloppy, and embarrassing. My dad would revert to his World War II days, crawl under the table, and yell out, "Sanchez," while crying. It was scary for a child to witness. I later learned that Sanchez was the man my dad tried to save and watch die in his arms. Sad, yes. Thankfully, post-traumatic stress disorder is now acknowledged. Most recently, my husband passed away from liver cancer that started with cirrhosis. He enjoyed his Grey Goose a bit too much. He was highly educated, successful in his career and business, had the kindest, most sensitive heart, and yet was defeated by alcohol. From a young age, I realized that drinking held nothing good for me. I never wanted to act like anyone I had seen. Even the seemingly funny drunks were, in reality, behaving foolishly. Story 108. I became houseless for a few years and slowly built a record. I kept getting threatened with prison time and eventually was sentenced. I caught a break and was referred for assistance. I got a job in housing, and to be frank, my life is better than it has ever been. I absolutely will not risk losing what I have. This is not how it usually works. Most people walk away with more barriers. They find themselves unable to progress or even get started. I am an exception. I wish things worked like this for everyone in similar situations, but I am also very happy that things worked out for me. Story 109. I worked in security at a nightclub, casino, and strip club. I have seen how it affects people, leading to a loss of inhibitions and ultimately ruining lives. Story 110. When I realized that we get drunk because we are literally poisoning our bodies, I cannot try to improve my overall health and then ingest poison for fun. Also, at my age, the hangovers are not worth it. Story 111. Alcoholic father. Alcoholism has affected generations in my family. It seemed like a poison that no one wanted to stop taking. I watched it ruin families. Eventually, my dad ended up in prison for multiple driving while intoxicated offenses. He still went back to drinking when he got out. That's when I recognized it for what it was, an excuse for feeling and acting in ways that we know aren't right. It's a few ounces of courage in exchange for pounds of cowardice. I've never been drunk and have no desire to drink. I got high once or twice and realized it was ultimately the same thing. It is pointless self-harm masked as comfort due to a lack of self-love and self-control. Story 112. I started drinking wine when I had my first child, but only when my toddler presses my buttons and I finally get him to sleep. I take a glass of wine and reflect on the choices I have made in my life. I only drink occasionally, and sometimes rarely, when that little rascal presses my buttons. I drive to my mother's house, drop him off, and return home to take a deep breath. Story 113. I stopped drinking at age 81 because it raised my blood pressure. that ended a 50-year friendship with alcohol. My blood pressure decreased in a week. Now at 84, I use THC gummies, which actually lower my blood pressure. Story 114. I just don't like the taste of it. I also know it's very bad for your health. It damages your kidneys and has destroyed many lives due to drunk driving. It can make people mean, loud, and abusive, leading them to do things they normally would not do if they were not under the influence. It's just a turn off. Story 115. When I drink more than a few, I crave cocaine, and then I can't stop for weeks on end. I lost my job and almost lost my house. After 150 days of sobriety, I have a new job, a new sober girlfriend, and I am finally loving myself and enjoying life for the first time. Story 116. Addictive family history, combined with a loss of control as a goal and the cost, along with the need to acquire the taste for it, resulted in an easy no for me. Story 117. 18 years sober. I watched many friends drink themselves to death. I had my demons. I begged God to give me the wisdom and strength to forgive everyone and stop drinking. It's not a pleasant journey, being the last man standing. 21 friends gone. I say sorry, but do not tell them I love them. Peace to everyone. Story 118. Because I already behave in a foolish manner when I'm sober, I don't want to know how I will act when I'm actually drunk. Additionally, it tastes unpleasant. Story 119. I cannot drink with any sort of moderation, and it took everything I had to stop in the first place. My life was falling apart, my finances as well, and then I got married and had children. I am not willing to be the drunk mom. I just know that if I start again, I cannot stop. Story 120. I am about 5 months dry from it. I did not have a problem or anything, no issues. However, it feels nice to not get headaches and to be free from worrying about being pulled over. Story 121. It doesn't belong in my body. I think it's used as a social device to keep us complacent, poor, and distracted. The alcohol industry is sickening. Once I saw it everywhere, I could not unsee it. I had a medical emergency due to a medication reaction, which led to quitting cold turkey. Then I really thought hard about why I felt drinking was necessary, when I know it's not good for me. I can't come up with a single reason. Story 122. I don't like the taste of most beverages. I enjoy some sweet cocktails, but I prefer the non-alcoholic versions. Story 123. My dad is a recovered alcoholic, and I inherited his addictive personality, so I avoid it to save myself the trouble. Story 124. Beer tastes like what I imagine urine would. Alcohol feels like my insides are burning, so I just don't partake. Story 125. I dislike the smell of beer. I do not wish to know what it tastes like. I have had communion, and let's just leave it at that. As for not starting, I have heard it can lead to questionable behavior. Therefore, I will not be going there anytime soon, if ever. Story 126. I lived in a very rural area where most of my social life revolved around pub games, such as darts, pool, and snooker. You usually had to drive to pubs and social clubs in outlying villages to play. Occasionally, you would come out and find that every road out of the village had police looking for drunk drivers. I also used to drive very quickly and knew that, even after one drink, my reactions weren't at their best. Therefore, it was a clear choice for me to stop drinking the day I bought my first car, as I had been using my father's car prior to this. I didn't drink much anyway, so it has never been a hardship in the 41 years since that decision. I also had an uncle who drank himself into losing his family, his business, and ultimately, his life. Story 127. I just don't like the feeling of it afterward. I would be very relaxed right now if I could get drunk without the side effects and without it affecting my body. That's all, to be honest. Story 128. I don't plan on it. I once tried some light wine, just 2 drops, and it tasted awful. Story 129. Dead friends. Dead parent. I was never invited anywhere people drank. By the time I tried it for the first time, I was 30 and properly scared of it. Story 130. This is partially how I grew up. No one in my family drinks. Partially, and especially now, I do not see the appeal personally, and I prefer not to use mind-altering substances. I have never tried them, though. Story 131. Having kids means getting up at 3 a.m. after 4 beers is tough. Now that they are teenagers, I have gotten used to not really drinking. I will have a beer occasionally, but I probably don't even average one drink a week. Story 132. My fitness app showed me that every time I drank alcohol, my recovery score the next morning was poor. It considered my deep sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, respiration rate, body temperature, heart rate, and heart rate variability. Story 133. I tried it once and absolutely hated how it made me feel. I've tried it again many times with different kinds, but the result has always been the same. So I just gave it up completely. I also grew up with a father who was an angry alcoholic, and I'll be damned if there's even a chance I could turn out that way. I smoke cannabis and am happy doing so. It has never given me a negative reaction. Story 134. I don't like drinking and I don't like being drunk, but I really love how it connects me to my emotions when I listen to music and experience euphoria from music while tipsy or drunk. My stomach hates alcohol. The next few days, I feel stressed out and depressed, feeling like everyone hates or judges me. But it is just my insecurities and anxiety. Also, when I drink, I often want to drink the next day because I have very addictive behaviors, and I used to be a drug addict. I have epilepsy, so overall, it is extremely bad for me to drink for the short-term enjoyable effect. Story 135. Both my younger and older siblings, as the second-born to my mother and the first-born to my father, chose to start drinking at an early age and learned from their mistakes. Story 136. I started to notice my dad coming out when I was drinking heavily. Years later, my dad stopped for the same reason. Story 137. I had a difficult experience where my trauma resurfaced. Never again. Therapy and cannabis have helped me refuse to drink. Even before that, I disliked the taste. Story 138. The next day you are unproductive and you often end up binge-watching because you feel bad. Alcohol is not worth my valuable time. Story 139. Pregnant at 24, I stopped drinking and partying. I never really drank after that. Someone had to be the designated adult. Story 140. I do not care for the feeling of being drunk. I do not like it. I have been drunk less than 3 times in my 55 years of life. Story 141. I recently gave up drinking. I didn't drink much, but I was trying to help people with mental health issues, most of whom had an alcohol problem. While I can't imagine it ever being a problem for me, witnessing the impact on those individuals, who might otherwise cope better, be healthier, and have fewer accidents was truly eye-opening. Story 142. My sister's death had a profound effect on my mom, which forced me to reevaluate my own self-destructive tendencies, primarily my drinking. As a result, I decided to quit. Story 143. I don't like the taste of anything except gin. I don't enjoy how it makes me feel or the cost. I drank when I was younger, but I could take it or leave it. I only drank socially, and now that phase of my life is over, I rarely have a drink. When I do, I only buy one small bottle. Story 144. I drank heavily starting from when I was around 16. I was self-medicating for bipolar disorder, although I was not aware of it at the time. When I was 18 and in college, I had a binge and got sick from drinking for the first and last time in my life. I have no idea how people can do that on purpose every other weekend. It was horrendous, and I never want to repeat it. Aside from that, I just don't like the taste of most alcohol, and I have come to dislike how I feel when I am tipsy. Story 145. I am very sensitive to taste, texture, and sensation, and I cannot handle the aftertaste of alcohol very well. It just tastes unpleasant to me and is uncomfortable to drink. All the varieties I have tried are 15% alcohol or higher, so perhaps something lower than that would be better. Story 146. It's useless and dangerous. Life is too precious. There is no need for alcohol to be happy or to have a good time. Story 147. I like beer too much. It's like my addiction. I don't need to be drinking 40 beers a night, so I had to stop. Life is much better without alcohol. Story 148. I drink occasionally, but mostly, I don't like the taste of alcohol. I don't enjoy beer or the flavor of liquor. When I started going to parties, they mostly served beer or hard liquor, which was often poor quality. So I chose to stick with soda and water. I sometimes have cider and occasionally enjoy a Kentucky Mule, but I never really developed a taste for it. Story 149. Alcoholic Parents. I experimented a little as a teenager, but don't think I've ever been drunk by any means. I decided it wasn't for me. I'm now in my mid-30s, have a very exciting life filled with hobbies, and do them all without drinking. I don't feel like I'm missing out. Story 150. I joined a group of friends after they had already been drinking for a few hours. Seeing that kind of changed my perspective. I didn't really drink for about 10 years after that, and now when I do, it's just to the buzz stage and then I'm good. Story 151. I very rarely drink. The last time was 2 years ago on New Year's Eve because I was with some friends and everybody had one drink. I had a drink that was 6% fruit sparkling wine. It's similar to Prosecco but with mixed fruit juice. I don't know if there is a proper name for that. I just don't like the taste. The aftertaste is reminiscent of hand sanitizer, or at least it tastes like how hand sanitizer smells. I've seen drunk people and it doesn't seem that fun. Maybe it's because everyone I've seen drunk eventually ends up vomiting or in an unpleasant situation, but even if they don't, it doesn't look fun. I have much more fun sober without the balance issues and anxiety that come from the possibility of doing something stupid because I'm drunk. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.